Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC, and today I will be reviewing the Jones Orion binding. I rode this binding at Copper Mountain where it was a beautiful sunny day. The clouds tried to roll in every once in a while, but really wasn't anything to worry about. The snow was soft and continued to get softer as the day went on, where right when you got there, you could lay a trench without even trying, and then towards the end of the day, it was like grandma's mashed potatoes where it was just crazy soft and push piles pretty much formed everywhere. I used my Ride Fuse boots and my Jones Aviator 2.0. The binding adjustability on this is very minimalistic, where you have a flip tab in the back to control that forward lean, and then two flip tabs, one on each strap, where you could either use a screwdriver or your hands. I normally just use my hands on it, but makes it nice and simple. And then you can also take off this ankle strap and flip it around just if you want a softer feel on it. You can also change these bushings out as well, just to get a little bit more different of a feel. And then to center the binding, you pretty much just mount it either vertically or horizontally, depending on how big your boot is. The first thing you'll notice is this is gonna have a hybrid ankle strap. So you're gonna have foam on the inside, and you're gonna have an exoskeleton that's molded on the outside. So what that does is that's gonna give you nice cushioning and padding, so your boot's not gonna be doing all that work, but it does give you a slight response to it. That being said, it is still gonna allow some lateral play to it. So don't really expect it to be super locked in. Just because of that foam, it allows it to give a little bit of extra movement there. When we move on to the toe strap here, it's the same toe strap that I'm used to on my Mercuries. It's the same one that's on the Meteorite. It is new this year. So on this toe strap, it's molded, but there is no structure to it at all. It just wants to hang out, and it really wants to stretch. So it fits any boot extremely well. My square-toed boots just molds right around them. A round-toed boot, it'll do the same exact thing. You can ride it over the toe or on top of the toe. It's your choice. I prefer on top, so when I really crank this thing down, it stretches out and it doesn't allow any movement on my boot. On the ankle strap, you can also flip this over, as I have mentioned before, where right now it's on the free ride mode, so it sits a little bit higher on your ankle. If you were to flip it over, it's gonna sit more on the instep of your foot, giving you a little bit more lateral play there. And all you do is you unscrew this, flip it over, put this actual strap on the other binding and vice versa, and you're all good to go. Remember to like, subscribe, click that bell, and turn on those notifications. Also, leave me a comment and let me know if you do change out your bushings on your either Yes or Jones bindings. These ratchets are pretty awesome, actually. I really enjoy them. They're the same ones that are on every other binding in the line, so you know they're solid. They don't have really any play to them. The toe kinda does, but I don't really think it's anything to worry about. It grips with your mitten extremely well, and getting out is just as easy as one finger. Like, I pretty much just use my pinky and just tap it and it pulls right out. So really nothing crazy to report here on. They just do what they're supposed to, and I don't have any problem with them slipping or ripping out any teeth, anything like that. When we're talking Highback on this binding, you will notice that there's quite a substantial forward lean on it already, where it's built in a little bit extra than any other binding out there. So keep that in mind, but as I mentioned before, you can easily flip this tab, give yourself a little bit more if that's what you're into, really get those turns down. But the main thing to keep in mind is, since the Highback doesn't have a crazy wing to it, or it's not crazy wide, you are gonna get lateral play out of this thing. So keep that in mind, especially when you're driving your knee in towards the center of the board there. You're gonna feel that allow you to really use that power and push in with this Highback, because it's really not that stiff. But when you're going heel to toe, it is plenty responsive for you, and it makes it nice and easy to get from that heel to the toe. The first thing you notice on this binding is that it does have that Skate Tech chassis to it. So your first thought is probably, it doesn't have a lot of flex to it, when in reality, the Highback and the straps here do allow this binding to flex laterally. Heel to toe movement, not so much. You're gonna feel a lot more responsive in that sense, but you still have a little bit of lateral play. Now with these bushings underneath here, it allows the binding to have the board flex nice and naturally underneath your foot, where it doesn't feel like a giant dead spot like those more rigid bindings, especially those more rigid chassis do. This one doesn't really allow for that, especially if you put softer bushings in as well. So You're not gonna have a lot of flex underneath your foot here, but up on that top end, you're gonna have a little bit more play. The first thing about this binding is you'll notice it does have that giant foam footbed, so when you're riding it, it is nice and damp. Now it doesn't feel like a soft, soaky sponge or anything like that, where you still feel what you're riding over, but you don't feel all those micro vibrations coming up. And that also has to do with these bushings underneath, which really cut down on all that vibration, but they allow that board to move nice and fluidly underneath your foot. Rider in mind. This binding is for pretty much any level rider. The main thing is they want a nice damp binding that isn't going to be too stiff or feel too locked into the board. And when I say that, I mean they want something with a nice heel toe response, but they want it to be a little bit surfier on that lateral movement. If you're looking for another way to get involved, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. I could explain it here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. I like this binding. I like the whole system of the binding. As you guys know, I ride a little stepped up version of this thing, but overall it is good. It's not really for me. I like to feel a little bit more locked in on it, but overall it's a good binding. I did end up losing one of the bushings and I had to take them off another set of bindings. So honestly, in my opinion, I don't think that many people actually change bushings out. I think it's time to just glue the bushings on and just be done with it, but that's not my call. So Jones, maybe make a fix there. Comparable bindings, the Rome390 Boss, the Ride C6, and the Salomon Hologram. This has been my review for the Jones Orion. If you're thinking about getting your own pair, make sure you go and watch Avran's video on how to set these bad Larrys up.